Captain Sarah Chun stared at the chaos in her laboratory aboard the research vessel Harmony's Dream. Chemical solutions dripped from overturned beakers, creating rainbow puddles on the metal floor. Broken glass sparkled under the bright lights, and the air hung thick with the smell of burnt electronics. In the center of it all sat Kira, her fox-like alien assistant, with her head buried in her hands and her orange-furred ears flat against her skull. The Vulpine species had joined the Galactic Council only 3 years ago. Their planet, Reynard Prime, had been devastated by a solar flare that destroyed most of their technology. The Council had offered them positions as servants and assistants to help them earn credits for rebuilding. Most humans saw the fox-like aliens as cute, but clumsy. Their large, expressive eyes and fluffy tails made them look more like pets than equals. Sarah had been different from the start. When she requested an assistant for her xenobiology research, she specifically asked for a Vulpine. Her colleagues thought she was crazy. The fox people were known for breaking things and making mistakes. But Sarah believed they were just nervous and trying too hard to please everyone. Kira had been assigned to her 6 months ago. The young Vulpine female stood barely 4 feet tall, with bright orange fur marked by white patches on her chest and the tip of her tail. Her ears were large and mobile, constantly twitching to catch every sound. Her hands were more like paws, with retractable claws that made fine motor work difficult. Most humans found it amusing when she struggled with simple tasks. "I'm so sorry, Captain Chun," Kira whispered, her voice barely audible. "I was trying to help with your protein synthesis experiment. I thought if I organized the chemicals by color instead of by type, it would be prettier and easier to find." Her tail curled around her body protectively. "I know I've ruined everything again." Sarah looked around the lab again. 3 weeks of work lay scattered across the floor. The protein samples she had been growing for her research in alien diseases were completely destroyed. The specialized equipment would take days to clean and recalibrate. Any other human captain would have sent Kira back to the council immediately. But Sarah noticed something the others always missed. Despite the mess, Kira had actually organized the surviving chemicals perfectly. The color coding system was brilliant, much better than the standard alphanumeric system used throughout the fleet. The young Vulpine had a natural talent for patterns and organization that humans couldn't match. "You know what, Kira?" Sarah said, rolling up her sleeves. "You're absolutely right. Color coding is much better." She grabbed a cleaning cloth and handed another to her surprised assistant. "Let's clean this up together, and then you can show me your new system." Kira's ears shot up in surprise. Her large amber eyes went wide with shock. "You're not sending me back to the council? You're not angry?" "Of course I'm not angry," Sarah replied, already kneeling to pick up glass fragments. "Mistakes happen when you're trying to improve things. That's how we learn and grow." She smiled at the bewildered Vulpine. "Besides, I think your color system might revolutionize how we organize lab materials." For the first time since Sarah had known her, Kira's tail began to wag. The motion was small and hesitant at first, but it grew stronger as she realized her captain was serious. Together, they began cleaning up the laboratory. As they worked, Kira explained her thinking. Red chemicals are usually dangerous, so they should be grouped together where everyone can see them clearly. Blue ones are often coolants or stabilizers. They go in the middle. Green chemicals are usually biological compounds, so they need special storage. Her voice grew more confident as she spoke. Yellow ones are typically reactive, so they need to be separated from everything else. Sarah listened carefully, impressed by the logic behind the system. Kira had intuitively understood chemical properties that took human students years to learn. The Vulpine species had evolved as pack hunters on their homeworld, developing incredible pattern recognition abilities to track prey and avoid predators. Those same skills translated perfectly to scientific work. "This is amazing, Kira," Sarah said as they finished cleaning up the broken glass. "You've created a visual system that makes dangerous combinations immediately obvious. No more mixing incompatible chemicals by accident." Kira's tail wagged harder. "Really? You think it's good?" "I think it's brilliant," Sarah replied honestly. "We should write a paper about this method and submit it to the Galactic Science Council." The young Vulpine's ears drooped slightly. But humans don't usually listen to Vulpine ideas. We're just assistants. Sarah stopped cleaning and looked directly at her companion. Not in my lab, you're not. In here, you're my research partner. She extended her hand to Kira. Equal partners working together to make discoveries. Kira stared at the outstretched hand for a long moment. On her homeworld, physical contact between species was reserved for family and close friends. But slowly, carefully, she reached out and grasped Sarah's hand with her own furry paw. Her claws retracted completely, and her grip was surprisingly strong. "Thank you, Captain Shun," she said softly. "No human has ever called me a partner before." "Well, that's their loss," Sarah replied firmly. "And call me Sarah when we're working together. Partners don't need titles." They spent the next 4 hours reorganizing the entire laboratory according to Kira's color-coding system. As they worked, Sarah learned more about her assistant's background. Kira had been a chemistry student on Reynard Prime before the solar flare destroyed her university. She had dreamed of becoming a researcher, but the disaster had forced her into service to help her family survive. "My people are good at seeing patterns," Kira explained as she arranged blue stabilizing compounds. "We had to survive on our world. But the other races think we're just good for simple tasks because we're small and look cute." "Size doesn't determine intelligence," Sarah said. "Some of the greatest human scientists were barely 5 feet tall. What matters is how you think, not how you look." As they finished the reorganization, an emergency alarm sounded throughout the ship. Captain Morrison's voice echoed over the intercom. "All senior staff to the bridge immediately. We have a situation." Sarah and Kira rushed to the bridge, where they found the crew gathered around the main display screen. On it was the image of a massive alien vessel, unlike anything in the databases. The ship was sleek and black, with organic curves that suggested it had been grown rather than built. Strange symbols pulsed along its hull in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Unknown vessel just dropped out of hyperspace," reported the navigation officer. "They're not responding to any communication attempts. The ship design doesn't match anything in our records." Captain Morrison, a gruff man in his 50s, scowled at the display. "Could be hostile. Shields up, weapons ready." He noticed Sarah and Kira entering the bridge. "Dr. Chun, we might need your expertise in xenobiology if this goes south." Sarah studied the alien vessel carefully. The organic design and the pulsing symbols suggested a highly advanced species with biotechnology far beyond human capabilities. "The ship appears to be alive," she observed. "Those aren't lights on the hull. There's some kind of neural patterns." "Neural patterns?" Morrison asked. "You mean the ship thinks?" "It's possible," Sarah replied. "Some species develop biotechnology instead of mechanical technology. They grow their tools instead of building them." Suddenly, Kira stepped forward, her ears perked up, and her eyes fixed on the display. "Captain Morrison," she said hesitantly. "Those symbols." I recognized the pattern. Everyone turned to stare at the small Vulpine. It was unusual for an assistant to speak on the bridge without being asked. "What do you mean?" Morrison demanded. Kira's tail twitched nervously, but she continued. "The pattern of the lights follows the same mathematical sequence we use for hunting formations on Reynard Prime. It's a communication protocol, but not through sound or radio waves. It's through pattern recognition." Sarah felt a surge of excitement. "Kira, are you saying you can read their signals?" "I think so," Kira replied, her confidence growing. "The patterns repeat in groups of 7, then 14, then 28. It's a doubling sequence. In Vulpine culture, that means peaceful approach followed by request for contact." Morrison looked skeptical. "You're telling me this fox can understand an alien species we've never seen before?" "It makes sense," Sarah said quickly. "The Vulpine evolved as pattern hunters. They can see mathematical relationships that other species miss. If this alien race communicates through visual patterns, Kira might be the only one who can understand them." The alien ship suddenly changed its display. New symbols appeared, brighter and more complex than before. Kira watched intently, her ears twitching as she processed the information. "They're asking why we're not responding," she said. "They've been trying to say hello for several minutes, but we haven't acknowledged them. They're getting confused. Morrison made a quick decision. Can you respond to them? Kira looked uncertain. I can try, but I don't know if our communication array can create the right kind of patterns. Sarah was already moving to the communications console. We can modify the external lights on the ship's hull, create patterns instead of sending radio signals. She began typing rapidly. Kira, tell me what sequence to send. Working together, they created a simple pattern of lights on the Harmony's Dream S hull. Kira guided the sequence while Sarah programmed the display. Within minutes, they had sent what Kira hoped was a peaceful greeting. The response was immediate. The alien ship's patterns changed to what Kira recognized as excitement and relief. New symbols appeared, and this time they were more complex, suggesting the aliens were trying to share more detailed information. They're saying their ship is damaged. Kira translated, her excitement growing. They had an accident in hyperspace and need help with repairs. They've been looking for a friendly species to assist them. Morrison nodded slowly. Can you tell them we want to help? As Kira and Sarah worked together to establish communication with the mysterious aliens, the rest of the bridge crew watched in amazement. The small Vulpine assistant who had been dismissed as clumsy and simple was now serving as humanity's first translator for an entirely new species. Incredible, whispered the science officer. She's actually talking to them. Sarah felt a surge of pride for her partner. This was exactly the kind of breakthrough she had hoped for when she chose to work with Kira. The young Vulpine had talents that no human could match, but she had never been given the chance to use them. They want to send a representative over to our ship, Kira announced. Just one individual to discuss the repairs they need. Morrison considered this carefully. It would be humanity's first face-to-face contact with this new species. The decision could affect relations between their civilizations for generations to come. Tell them yes, he decided. We'll meet with their representative in the main conference room. As Kira translated the acceptance, Sarah realized that everything was about to change. Not just for humanity's relationship with this new alien species, but for how the galaxy viewed the Vulpine people. Kira had just proven that her species possessed unique and valuable abilities that had been overlooked for too long. The young Fox assistant who had started the day in tears over a laboratory accident was now making first contact with an unknown alien race. And it was only the beginning. The alien representative materialized in the Harmony's Dream S transporter room in a swirl of blue energy. Sarah watched from behind the safety barrier as the figure took shape, tall, graceful, with crystalline skin that seemed to shift colors like an opal. The being stood nearly 8 feet in height, with elongated limbs and a head that resembled a geometric sculpture made of living gemstone. Its eyes were deep pools of silver that seemed to contain stars. Captain Morrison stepped forward, flanked by his security team. "Welcome aboard the Harmony's Dream," he said formally. "I am Captain Morrison of the Human Federation." The crystalline being's skin pulsed with different colors, creating patterns that flowed across its surface like liquid light. It spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "The patterns are wrong," Kira whispered to Sarah. "It's trying to communicate, but Captain Morrison can't see the color changes. The being is getting frustrated." Sarah quickly stepped forward. "Captain, they communicate through color patterns, remember? We need Kira to translate." Morrison looked annoyed, but nodded. "Go ahead, then." Kira approached the alien carefully, her ears flicking nervously. She studied the color patterns flowing across its crystalline skin, her eyes darting back and forth as she processed the visual information. After a moment, her tail began to wag slightly. "It says its name is the closest translation would be Crystal Song of Deep Waters," Kira announced. "It's grateful that we responded to their distress call. Its people are called the Luminari." The alien, Crystal Song, noticed Kira's attention, and the patterns on its skin shifted to brighter, more excited colors. It leaned down slightly, bringing its face closer to the small Vulpine. "It's asking if I'm the one who understood their ship's patterns," Kira said, her voice filled with wonder. "It says very few species can read pattern language properly. Most try to use sound or electromagnetic signals." Crystal Song's skin began displaying incredibly complex patterns, layers of color, and light that shifted so rapidly that the humans could barely track them. But Kira watched intently, her amber eyes reflecting the aliens' colors. "It's explaining their problem," Kira said, her excitement growing. "Their ship is grown from living crystal, but it was damaged by something called a thought storm in hyperspace. The crystal is sick and needs very specific minerals to heal." Sarah leaned forward. "What kind of minerals?" Kira listened as Crystal Song's patterns became more detailed. "It says they need something called singing stone, a mineral that resonates at specific frequencies. Without it, their ship will die, and they'll be stranded." Captain Morrison frowned. "We don't have anything called singing stone in our cargo holds." Crystal Song's colors shifted to what Kira recognized as hope mixed with desperation. The alien began creating new patterns, more urgent than before. "Wait," Kira said, her ears perking up. "It says singing stone isn't the name humans would use. It's describing the mineral's properties." She concentrated harder on the flowing patterns. "It vibrates when exposed to electromagnetic fields, changes color based on temperature, and can store energy like a battery." Sarah's eyes widened. "That sounds like harmonium crystals. We have tons of those in the geology department." "Harmonium?" Morrison asked. "It's a semi-precious stone we use in some of our scientific equipment," Sarah explained. "The crystals resonate at specific frequencies when charged with electricity. We use them to calibrate sensitive instruments." Kira quickly translated this to Crystal Song, whose skin erupted in brilliant patterns of gold and silver. The alien's joy was so intense that even the humans could sense its relief. "It says harmonium is exactly what they need," Kira reported. "But there's a problem. The crystals have to be prepared in a very specific way, or they won't bond with the ship's living crystal structure." Crystal Song began displaying a new set of patterns, these ones more technical and precise. Kira watched carefully, occasionally asking questions through her own pattern of movements. The alien responded with what appeared to be detailed instructions. "It's showing me how to prepare the harmonium crystals," Kira said. "The process involves exposing them to specific light frequencies while they're suspended in a magnetic field. It has to be done in a precise sequence, or the crystals will become inert." Sarah felt a surge of excitement. That's advanced crystallography, way beyond anything humans have developed. The Luminari have been working with living crystals for thousands of years. Kira, translated as Crystal Song, continued its explanation. "They grow their technology instead of building it. Ships, tools, even their cities are all grown from specially prepared crystals." Morrison looked skeptical. "And you can understand all of this just from watching colored lights." Kira's ears drooped slightly at his tone, but she nodded. "Pattern recognition is how my people survive. We see relationships and sequences that others miss. This is just a more complex version of tracking prey or predicting weather patterns." Crystal Song noticed Kira's reaction, and its skin shifted to protective, defensive colors. It spoke directly to Morrison, its patterns sharp and angular. "It says that dismissing pattern readers is foolish," Kira translated, her voice gaining strength. "Many species make that mistake and miss important opportunities for growth and learning." Sarah stepped closer to her partner. "Kira is right, Captain. Her abilities are exactly what we need to help the Luminari. And this could be the beginning of a valuable relationship between our species." Morrison considered this. The Luminari obviously possessed advanced technology that could benefit humanity. And if they really could grow tools and ships instead of manufacturing them, it could revolutionize human civilization. "All right," he decided. "Dr. Chun, take your assistant and see if you can prepare these harmonium crystals according to their specifications. I'll have the geology department gather all the crystals we have." As they headed to the geology lab, Crystal Song followed them, its skin displaying patterns of curiosity and interest. Other crew members stopped to stare at the magnificent alien, but it only seemed interested in watching Kira work. The geology lab was smaller than Sarah's xenobiology lab, but it contained several pieces of equipment perfect for crystal manipulation. Dr. James Rodriguez, the ship's geologist, was already waiting with a collection of harmonium crystals spread across his workbench. "These are all the harmonium crystals we have," Rodriguez said, gesturing to the glittering array. About 50 pounds of various sizes and grades. Crystal Song examined the crystals, and its skin patterns shifted to approval. It began creating new instructional patterns, showing Kira exactly how to set up the preparation process. We need to create a magnetic suspension field, Kira explained, studying the alien's directions. Then, expose the crystals to specific wavelengths of light in a precise sequence. Red light first, then blue, then ultraviolet with exact timing between each exposure. Sarah and Rodriguez worked together to set up the equipment while Kira continued receiving instructions from Crystal Song. The young Vulpine moved between the alien and the human scientists, translating technical details with growing confidence. The first crystal goes in the magnetic field now, Kira directed. Start with red light at 63% intensity. As they began the process, something remarkable happened. The harmonium crystal began to change, its internal structure shifting and becoming more complex. Instead of the simple geometric patterns humans were familiar with, the crystal developed organic curves and flowing lines. It's becoming alive, Sarah breathed, watching the transformation through a microscope. The crystal is developing neural pathways like living tissue. Crystal Song's skin displayed what Kira recognized as deep satisfaction and approval. The alien was clearly pleased with their progress. It says we're natural crystal weavers, Kira translated. The Luminari are impressed by how quickly we learn the process. Rodriguez shook his head in amazement. This is beyond anything we understood about crystal physics. We're literally growing intelligence into inorganic matter. As they continued preparing crystals, Kira's confidence grew. She began anticipating Crystal Song's instructions, understanding the pattern language so well that she could predict what came next. The alien noticed this, and its patterns shifted to what looked like excitement. It's asking if I would like to learn more advanced crystal weaving techniques, Kira said, her tail wagging rapidly. It says I have a natural talent for it. Sarah smiled proudly. Of course you do. Accept the offer, Kira. This could be the discovery of a lifetime. Crystal Song began displaying incredibly complex patterns, teaching Kira advanced techniques for crystal manipulation. The young Vulpine absorbed the information eagerly, her pattern recognition abilities allowing her to understand concepts that would take human scientists years to master. The crystals can be programmed to perform specific functions, Kira explained as she worked. Not just energy storage, but actual computation and memory storage. A single crystal can hold as much information as one of our computer databases. As word of the breakthrough spread through the ship, more crew members gathered to watch. The small Vulpine who had been cleaning up a laboratory accident that morning was now learning advanced alien technology and serving as humanity's first crystal weaving student. Captain Morrison arrived just as they finished preparing the last batch of crystals. The harmonium had been transformed into something that pulsed with soft, organic light, clearly alive and intelligent. Impressive work, Morrison acknowledged. How do we get these to their ship? Crystal Song's patterns showed appreciation for the completed work, then shifted to new information. Kira translates it carefully. It says we need to transport the crystals in a specific containment field to keep them stable. But it also wants to invite a small team to see their ship and learn more about crystal weaving technology. Morrison raised an eyebrow. They're willing to share their technology with us? It says sharing knowledge makes both species stronger, Kira replied. The Luminari believe that hoarding information leads to stagnation. Sarah felt a thrill of anticipation. This was exactly the kind of breakthrough that xenobiologists dreamed of, the chance to study an entirely new form of life and technology. I volunteer to go, she said immediately. And I'll need Kira to translate, Morrison added. Can't risk miscommunication when we're dealing with living technology. Crystal Song's patterns indicated agreement and invitation. The alien was clearly pleased by human willingness to learn and cooperate. As they prepared for the visit to the Luminari ship, Sarah realized that Kira had accomplished something extraordinary. In a single day, she had gone from a clumsy assistant to humanity's first xenocrystal expert. More importantly, She had proven that the vulpine species possessed unique and valuable abilities that the galaxy had overlooked for far too long. The Luminari ship defied every human understanding of spacecraft design. As Sarah and Kira materialized on its bridge through the crystal-based transporter, they found themselves standing in what appeared to be the interior of a massive geode. The walls, floor, and ceiling were all composed of living crystal that pulsed with gentle light. Patterns of color flowed through the structure like blood through veins, creating a network of communication and control that was both beautiful and functional. "It's incredible," Sarah whispered, turning in a slow circle to take in the organic architecture. "The entire ship is one living organism." Kira's ears twitched as she watched the patterns flowing through the crystal walls. "Crystal Song is explaining how it works," she said, following the alien's color language. "The ship doesn't have a computer or engine in the traditional sense. Every part of the crystal structure can think, store information, and generate power." Crystal Song gestured for them to follow deeper into the ship. As they walked, Sarah noticed that the floor responded to their footsteps, creating small ripples of light that spread outward like water. The ship was aware of their presence and was actively accommodating their movement. They entered what Crystal Song indicated was the heart of the vessel, a large chamber where a massive crystal formation rose from the floor like a crystalline tree. But this tree was sick. Dark patches spread across its surface like a disease, and the normal flow of light patterns was interrupted by dead zones where no energy moved. "This is what the thought storm damaged," Kira translated as Crystal Song's patterns became subdued and worried. "The central consciousness of a ship. Without it functioning properly, the ship can't navigate hyperspace or even maintain life support for much longer." Sarah approached the damaged crystal carefully, her xenobiology training helping her recognize the similarities to biological infection. "It looks like some kind of crystalline virus or corruption. The dark areas are spreading and cutting off communication between different parts of the ship's nervous system." Crystal Song confirmed her observation, its skin patterns showing approval for her quick understanding. The alien began displaying more complex information, teaching Kira about the nature of the damage. "It says the thought storm was a pocket of chaotic mental energy in hyperspace," Kira explained. "When their ship passed through it, the psychic resonance infected the crystal matrix. Now the ship's consciousness is fragmenting." "Psychic resonance?" Sarah asked, fascinated despite the seriousness of the situation. "The ship is telepathic?" "All Luminari crystal ships are partially telepathic," Kira translated. "That's how they navigate hyperspace, by sensing the mental currents and energy flows that exist between dimensions. But this also makes them vulnerable to psychic contamination." Crystal Song led them to a smaller chamber where several other Luminari waited. Each was slightly different. Some had more angular features, others were more curved, and their crystal skin displayed unique color patterns. But all of them showed the same worry and hope as they looked at the prepared harmonium crystals that had been transported over from the human ship. "These are the ship's other crew members," Kira said. "They're all part of a collective consciousness that helps guide the vessel. But with the central crystal damaged, they can't work together properly." Sarah watched as the Luminari communicated with each other through rapid exchanges of color and pattern. Even without understanding the language, she could sense the urgency and concern in their movements. "Ask them if they've tried any treatments for the psychic contamination," she suggested to Kira. The young Vulpine translated the question, and Crystal Song's response was lengthy and complex. "They've tried several traditional healing methods," Kira reported. "But the contamination is unlike anything they've encountered before. It seems to adapt and resist their usual crystal healing techniques." Sarah studied the damaged central crystal more carefully, her scientific mind working through the problem. "In biological systems, when we encounter adaptive infections, we sometimes use combination therapy, multiple treatments that attack the problem from different angles." As Kira translated this concept, the Luminari's patterns shifted to intense interest. Crystal Song approached Sarah directly, its skin displaying what she was learning to recognize as excited questioning. It wants to know if human medical knowledge could be applied to crystal healing, Kira said. They've never considered treating crystal sickness like biological disease. Why not? Sarah replied. The symptoms are similar. Infection, spreading contamination, loss of function. The fact that it's crystalline instead of cellular doesn't mean the principles can't be adapted. Crystal Song began displaying technical information about their traditional healing methods. Kira absorbed the patterns and translated the complex concepts into terms Sarah could understand. They usually heal damaged crystals by resonating them with pure harmonic frequencies, Kira explained. But this contamination creates its own counter frequencies that neutralize the healing harmonics. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. So the infection is actively fighting back against treatment. In human medicine, we'd call that an antibiotic-resistant infection. She turned to examine the prepared harmonium crystals. But what if we don't fight the contamination directly? What if we strengthen the healthy parts of the crystal instead? This concept clearly intrigued the luminari. Crystal Song's skin erupted in rapid, excited patterns as it discussed Sarah's idea with its crew members. Even without understanding the language, Sarah could see that they were considering possibilities they had never explored. They want to try it, Kira announced. But they need to understand exactly how human immune systems work. They want to apply biological healing principles to crystal medicine. For the next several hours, Sarah found herself giving an impromptu lecture on human immunology to an audience of crystalline aliens. Using Kira as translator, she explained concepts like white blood cells, antibodies, and cellular regeneration. The luminari absorbed every detail, their skin patterns showing deep fascination with biological healing processes. In humans, when an infection is too strong for direct treatment, we boost the body's natural defenses, Sarah explained. We strengthen the immune system so it can fight the disease itself. Crystal Song's patterns indicated understanding and excitement. It began communicating rapidly with the other luminari, and soon all of them were displaying complex technical discussions across their skin surfaces. They think they can adapt this approach to crystal healing, Kira translated. Instead of trying to destroy the psychic contamination, they can strengthen the ship's natural consciousness so it can resist and eventually overcome the infection. But they need the harmonium crystals to provide the extra energy for this process, another luminari added through pattern speak that Kira translated. The prepared crystals will act like, what do you call the medicine that boosts human immune systems? Antibiotics and immune boosters, Sarah replied. The harmonium crystals will be like a vitamin supplement for the ship's consciousness. The luminari began the treatment process immediately. Working together, they carefully positioned the prepared harmonium crystals at specific points around the damaged central crystal. Each placement was precise, following mathematical patterns that Kira helped them calculate using her natural pattern recognition abilities. As the harmonium crystals were integrated into the ship's structure, something remarkable began to happen. The new crystals started pulsing in rhythm with the healthy parts of the central crystal, creating a resonance field that strengthened the ship's natural consciousness. It's working, Kira said, her tail wagging as she watched the patterns flow through the crystal matrix. The dark areas are starting to retreat, but the contamination wasn't giving up easily. As the ship's strengthened consciousness began to fight back, the psychic infection tried to spread faster, racing to corrupt more of the crystal matrix before it could be healed. We need more power, Crystal Song's patterns indicated urgently. The contamination is fighting harder than expected. Sarah watched the battle between health and corruption playing out in real time across the crystal surfaces. It reminded her of watching white blood cells attack an infection under a microscope, but on a massive scale. What if we add more harmonium crystals? She suggested. Increase the dosage like we would with medicine. But Crystal Song's patterns showed concern. Too much too fast could overwhelm the ship's consciousness, like giving a patient too much medicine at once. Kira studied the flowing patterns carefully, her amber eyes tracking multiple streams of information simultaneously. Suddenly, her ears perked up, and her tail began wagging rapidly. I see the solution, she announced. We don't need more crystals, we need better timing. The harmonium crystals are all pulsing at the same frequency, but they should be pulsing in a sequence that matches the ship's natural healing rhythm. She began explaining her observation to Crystal Song, using both translated words and her own attempts at creating simple color patterns with a handheld light device. The alien's response was immediate and enthusiastic. "She's right. Crystal Song's patterns confirmed. The young pattern reader sees the disharmony in our healing rhythm. We need to synchronize the crystal pulses with the ship's natural heartbeat." Working together, Kira and the Luminari began adjusting the frequency patterns of each harmonium crystal. It was incredibly complex work, requiring precise timing and coordination between multiple energy sources. But Kira's pattern recognition abilities allowed her to see relationships that even the experienced Luminari had missed. As the harmonium crystals synchronized with the ship's natural rhythms, the healing process accelerated dramatically. The dark patches of contamination began shrinking rapidly, unable to maintain their hold against the strengthened and properly coordinated crystal consciousness. "The infection is in retreat," Sarah observed, watching the battle through the crystal walls. "The ship's immune system is winning." Within an hour, the last traces of psychic contamination had been eliminated. The central crystal glowed with renewed health, its patterns flowing smoothly and brightly throughout the ship's structure. The Luminari crew members' skin displays shifted to what Kira recognized as joy and relief. "They're saying the ship is completely healed," she translated. "Better than before, actually. The harmonium crystals have permanently strengthened the ship's psychic defenses." Crystal Song approached Sarah and Kira, its patterns displaying deep gratitude and respect. The alien spoke for several minutes, its colors shifting through complex emotional ranges. "It says that combining human medical knowledge with Luminari crystal technology has created something entirely new," Kira translated, her voice filled with pride. "They want to establish a permanent exchange program between our species to continue developing hybrid healing techniques." Sarah felt a surge of excitement at the possibilities. "Imagine what we could accomplish together." Human medical expertise, combined with Luminari crystal technology, could revolutionize healing for both species. But Crystal Song had more to say. Its patterns shifted to what Kira recognized as formal announcement and high honor. "It says that the Luminari Collective wants to officially recognize both of us as crystal healers," Kira said, her eyes wide with amazement. "We will be the first non-Luminari ever to receive this title." Sarah looked at her young partner with deep pride. "What do you think, Kira? Ready to become the galaxy's first Vulpine crystal healer?" Kira's tail wagged so hard her whole body shook. "I never imagined this morning that I'd end the day as anything more than a clumsy assistant. Now I'm going to be a crystal healer." "You were never just a clumsy assistant," Sarah said firmly. "You were always brilliant. You just needed someone to believe in you and give you the right opportunities." As they prepared to return to the human ship with news of their success, Sarah realized that this was just the beginning. The partnership between humans and Luminari would open up entirely new fields of research and discovery. And Kira had proven that the Vulpine species possessed unique talents that made them invaluable partners in scientific exploration. The young fox who had started the day in tears over a laboratory accident had become the key to one of the most significant diplomatic and scientific breakthroughs in galactic history. News of a successful healing spread throughout the human fleet with unprecedented speed. Within hours of Sarah and Kira's return to the Harmony's dream, communication channels buzzed with reports of the breakthrough. Admiral Patricia Vance, commander of the exploration fleet, called an emergency conference to discuss the implications of humanity's first contact with the Luminari. The main conference room was packed with senior officers, scientists, and diplomats from across the fleet. Sarah and Kira sat at the head of the table alongside Captain Morrison, while a holographic projection of Crystal Song provided real-time translation through the color pattern communication system they had developed. "Let me understand this correctly," Admiral Vance said, studying the reports on her tablet. "A Vulpine assistant and a xenobiologist have not only established first contact with an unknown alien species, but have also developed revolutionary healing techniques that could transform medicine for both races? That's correct, Admiral, Sarah replied. The combination of human medical knowledge and luminary crystal technology has created healing methods that neither species could have developed alone. Admiral Vance turned her attention to Kira, who sat nervously beside Sarah with her ears slightly flattened. And you can actually communicate with these beings through visual patterns? Yes, Admiral, Kira said quietly. Pattern recognition is a natural Vulpine ability. We evolved to track complex visual information for hunting and survival. Remarkable, the Admiral murmured. Dr. Chun, what are the broader implications of this crystal healing technology? Sarah leaned forward enthusiastically. The possibilities are almost unlimited, Admiral. Luminary crystals can store and process information like living computers, but they can also interface directly with biological systems. We could develop medical devices that grow and adapt to each patient's specific needs. Crystal Song's holographic form pulsed with agreement, its skin patterns displaying what Kira translated as excitement and additional technical details. Crystal Song says they've already begun growing new crystal healing matrices using the techniques we developed together, Kira reported. They want to share this technology with other species throughout the galaxy. Admiral Vance nodded thoughtfully. What do they want in return? The question caused Crystal Song's patterns to shift to what Kira recognized as confusion and mild offense. It asked why we assume they want something in return, Kira translated. The Luminari believe that knowledge belongs to all intelligent species. They think hoarding information weakens the entire galaxy. This statement caused murmurs throughout the conference room. Most human experience with alien races had involved careful negotiations and trade agreements. The concept of freely sharing advanced technology was almost unthinkable. They're offering to teach their crystal growing techniques to any species that wants to learn, Kira continued. In exchange, they hope other races will share their own knowledge and discoveries. Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, the fleet's chief medical officer, raised her hand. Have they shared this technology with other species before? Crystal Song's response was lengthy and complex, involving historical patterns that took Kira several minutes to interpret. They've tried to share with other races, Kira finally reported. But most species couldn't understand the pattern language needed to work with living crystals. Some tried to use the crystals like normal technology and damage them. Others dismissed the entire concept as primitive because it's biological instead of mechanical. Sarah felt a surge of understanding. That's why they were so excited to work with humans and Vulpines. We approach their technology with respect and try to understand it on its own terms instead of forcing it to work like our existing tools. Admiral Vance turned to address the room. Ladies and gentlemen, we're looking at a potential revolution in galactic cooperation. If the Luminari are willing to share their technology freely, and if we can establish similar relationships with other species, we could see unprecedented advancement in science and medicine. But Captain Fletcher from the Enterprise's Hope raised a concern. Admiral, what about security implications? If we share human medical knowledge freely, we could be giving potential enemies information about our biological weaknesses. Crystal Song's patterns shifted to what Kira recognized as sadness and disappointment. The alien spoke for several minutes, its colors becoming more subdued. It says that thinking of other species as potential enemies is exactly the kind of mindset that prevents galactic advancement, Kira translated. The Luminari have never encountered a species that became hostile after sharing knowledge. Usually, cooperation leads to mutual benefit and stronger relationships. Sarah added her support to Crystal Song's position. The medical techniques we've developed benefit both species equally. We're not sharing weaknesses. We're creating stronger, healthier civilizations. Admiral Vance considered this carefully. Dr. Chun, do you believe the Luminari pose any threat to human security? None whatsoever, Sarah replied firmly. Their entire philosophy is based on growth and cooperation. They literally cannot survive without working together. Their ships are collective organisms that require multiple consciousnesses to function. In fact, Kira added. Crystal Song has mentioned that the Luminari would like to propose something even more ambitious than just sharing technology. All eyes turned to the young Vulpine as she listened to Crystal Song's expanding patterns. They want to establish a galactic healing institute, she announced. A joint research facility where multiple species can work together to develop new medical technologies. They're offering to provide the crystal ship technology needed to build it. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. A truly multi-species research facility would be unprecedented in galactic history. Dr. Hayes was the first to speak. Where would such a facility be located? Crystal Song's response was immediate and enthusiastic. They suggest building it at the galactic crossroads, a neutral region where trade routes from multiple species intersect, Kira translated. The facility would be governed by representatives from all participating species. Admiral Vance looked around the room, gauging the reactions of her officers. This is far beyond my authority to approve. A decision like this would need to come from Earth Command and the Federation Council. With respect, Admiral, Sarah interjected, this opportunity might not wait for bureaucratic approval. The Luminari have been searching for cooperative species for generations. If we delay too long, they might continue their journey and find other partners. Crystal Song confirmed this concern, its patterns showing regret, but also determination. It says they can't wait indefinitely, Kira translated. Their exploration mission has a schedule to maintain, and they have other potential partners to investigate. Captain Morrison spoke up. What would we need to commit to this project? Initially, just a small research team and some basic supplies, Kira replied after consulting with Crystal Song. The Luminari would provide the crystal ship technology and the construction materials. Other species would contribute their own expertise and personnel. Admiral Vance made a quick decision. Dr. Chun, I'm authorizing you to continue working with the Luminari as a preliminary research team. If you can demonstrate the viability of this interspecies cooperation, I'll recommend the project to Earth Command. Sarah felt a thrill of excitement. Thank you, Admiral. We won't disappoint you. And I want Assistant Kira officially reassigned as the fleet's first xenolinguistic specialist, the Admiral continued. Her pattern recognition abilities are clearly crucial for this cooperation. Kira's ears shot up in surprise. Xenolinguistic specialist? But I'm just an assistant. Not anymore, Admiral Vance said firmly. You're the galaxy's first expert in Luminari communication. That makes you one of the most valuable members of this fleet. Crystal Song's patterns shifted to what Kira recognized as celebration and approval. The alien was clearly pleased by the recognition of Kira's abilities. As the conference concluded, Admiral Vance pulled Sarah and Kira aside for a private conversation. I want you both to understand the significance of what you've accomplished, she said seriously. This isn't just about medical technology or even first contact. You've potentially changed the entire dynamic of interspecies relations in this galaxy. Sarah nodded. We understand, Admiral. This could be the beginning of true galactic cooperation instead of just trade agreements and territorial negotiations. Exactly, Vance replied. And that means you'll be under intense scrutiny from multiple governments and species. Are you prepared for that responsibility? Kira looked uncertain, but Sarah placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We're prepared, Admiral, and we have Crystal Song and the Luminari to help guide us through the cultural challenges. Admiral Vance smiled. Good. I'm assigning you a dedicated research vessel, the Discovery, for your work with the Luminari. You'll have complete autonomy to develop this partnership as you see fit. As they left the conference room, Kira was still in shock over her rapid promotion from assistant to specialist. I can't believe this is happening, she said to Sarah. This morning I was crying over spilled chemicals. Tonight, I'm a xenolinguistic specialist working on the most important diplomatic mission in galactic history. Believe it, Sarah replied with a smile. You've earned every bit of this recognition, and this is just the beginning. Wait until you see what we accomplish next. Crystal Song, who had been quietly observing their conversation, displayed patterns of contentment and anticipation. The alien was clearly looking forward to the expanded cooperation between their species. As they prepared to transfer to the Discovery and begin their work on the Galactic Healing Institute, Sarah realized that they were about to embark on an adventure that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what was possible when different species work together with mutual respect and shared goals. The young Vulpine, who had once been dismissed as a clumsy assistant, was now leading humanity into a new era of intergalactic cooperation. And Sarah couldn't wait to see where their partnership would take them next. 6 months after their first meeting with the Luminari, Sarah and Kira stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Galactic Healing Institute, watching as ships from 12 different species approached the massive crystal structure that served as their headquarters. The facility hung in space at the galactic crossroads, a breathtaking fusion of Luminari crystal technology, human engineering, and innovations from species they had never encountered before. The Institute itself was a living work of art. Luminari crystal formations grew in organic spirals around a central core, while human-designed modules provided traditional laboratory and living spaces. Thackeray energy weaving systems powered the entire structure, and Zolonia biogardens created atmosphere processing centers that could support dozens of different environmental requirements. "I still can't believe how quickly this came together," Kira said, her tail swishing with excitement as she watched a hegemony transport ship dock with one of the crystal landing platforms. "6 months ago, I was just cleaning up laboratory accidents." Sarah smiled at her partner's continued amazement. In the months since their first contact with the Luminari, Kira had become the galaxy's foremost expert in interspecies pattern communication. Her natural abilities had proven invaluable in establishing contact with species that communicated through color, frequency, electromagnetic pulses, and even pheromone patterns. "You come a long way from laboratory assistant," Sarah agreed. Dr. Kira Brightstar, director of Xenolinguistic Communications for the Galactic Healing Institute. Kira's official title still made her ears twitch with embarrassment and pride. The name Brightstar had been gifted to her by the Luminari, who didn't understand family names but recognized her pattern-reading abilities as being as brilliant as a navigational star. "The counselors are arriving," she observed, watching as delegations from various species emerged from their ships. "I should prepare the translation matrices for the opening ceremony." The translation matrices were Kira's greatest innovation, complex pattern displays that could convert between different forms of communication in real time. Species that spoke with sound waves could communicate instantly with species that used light patterns, electromagnetic frequencies, or biochemical signals. As they made their way to the central assembly hall, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since that chaotic morning in her laboratory. The success of their healing techniques had attracted attention from across the galaxy. Species that had never worked together before were now collaborating on medical research that benefited everyone. The assembly hall was a marvel of interspecies architecture. The Luminari had grown crystal formations that could adjust their light and color to accommodate species with different visual systems. The Thackeray had contributed energy fields that could carry sound, electromagnetic signals, and chemical communication simultaneously. Human engineers had designed seating and workspaces that could be reconfigured for beings ranging from tiny insectoid species to massive gas cloud entities. As the various delegations took their places, Kira activated the translation matrices. Instantly, the hall filled with a symphony of communication. Flowing colors from the Luminari, harmonic frequencies from the Thackeray, complex pheromone patterns from the hegemony insectoids, and traditional speech from the human representatives. Dr. Ezra Vasquez, the human representative from Earth Command, stood to address the assembly. His words were immediately translated into dozens of different communication forms by Kira's systems. 6 months ago, the Galactic Healing Institute was just an ambitious dream, he began. Today, it represents the most successful interspecies cooperation project in recorded galactic history. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Crystal Song Skin erupted in brilliant patterns of joy and pride. The Thackeray representative generated harmonic resonances that made the crystal walls sing. The hegemony delegation released celebratory pheromones that triggered their translation devices to display the biochemical equivalent of applause. Our first major breakthrough came from combining human medical knowledge with Luminari crystal technology, Dr. Vasquez continued. But since then, we've achieved advances that no single species could have accomplished alone. He gestured to a holographic display that showed some of their recent achievements. Nanocrystal healing devices that could repair cellular damage at the molecular level. Bioharmonics that could cure mental illnesses across multiple species. Crystal matrices that could store and share medical knowledge directly between different types of consciousness. The Thackeray frequency healing techniques have eliminated chronic pain for millions of beings, Dr. Vasquez reported. Hegemony biosynthesis methods have created universal antibiotics that work across species barriers. Zolonian biogardens have provided sustainable food sources for exploration missions throughout the galaxy. But Sarah knew the real success wasn't just in the medical breakthroughs. The Institute had proven that species could work together as true equals, sharing knowledge and resources without the traditional power struggles that had characterized most interspecies relations. Crystal Song approached the central platform, its skin patterns requesting permission to speak. Kira immediately activated the translation matrices to broadcast the alien's words throughout the hall. The young pattern reader showed us that cooperation creates strength that no individual species can achieve, Crystal Song's patterns declared. The healing techniques we developed together have saved thousands of lives and prevented conflicts that might have destroyed entire civilizations. The Luminari continued with what Kira recognized as a formal announcement of great importance. The collective wishes to propose expanding the Institute's mission beyond medical research. We want to establish similar cooperative centers for technological development, cultural exchange, and conflict resolution. The suggestion caused excited communication throughout the hall. Representatives from various species began rapid discussions in their native languages and communication forms. The Thackeray delegate spoke next. Its words carried on harmonic frequencies that resonated through the crystal structure. The Harmonic Confederation agrees with this proposal. We have seen the benefits of true cooperation and wish to expand these relationships. One by one, the other species added their support. The Hegemony wanted to establish agricultural cooperation centers. The Zolonians proposed cultural exchange institutes. Even species that had been traditional rivals expressed interest in working together. Admiral Vance, who had traveled from the human fleet to attend the ceremony, stood to address the assembly. The success of this institute has exceeded our wildest expectations. In 6 months, we've seen more medical advancement than most species achieve in centuries. She paused to look directly at Sarah and Kira. But the real achievement here isn't technological. It's proof that different species can work together as equals, respecting each other's unique abilities while building something greater than any of us could create alone. The Admiral's next words carried significant weight. Earth Command has authorized me to commit humanity to full participation in an expanded galactic cooperation initiative. We're prepared to contribute resources, knowledge, and personnel to establish cooperation centers throughout the galaxy. The response was immediate and enthusiastic. Crystal Song's skin blazed with patterns of joy and determination. The Thackeray harmonics reached frequencies that made the entire structure resonate with musical celebration. The Hegemony delegation released such a complex mixture of celebratory pheromones that the translation systems briefly overloaded, trying to convey their meaning. As the formal ceremony concluded and delegations began planning their expanded cooperation efforts, Sarah found herself standing with Kira on the observation deck once again, watching ships from different species working together to construct new facilities. "Do you ever think about that morning when you spilled the chemicals?" Sarah asked. Kira's ears twitched with amusement. "I think about it every day. If you had reacted like any other human captain, if you had sent me back to the council in disgrace, none of this would have happened." "That's not true," Sarah replied firmly. "Your abilities would have been recognized eventually, maybe by a different human, or maybe by another species entirely. Talent like yours doesn't stay hidden forever." "But it might have taken years or decades," Kira pointed out. "And we might never have met the Luminari, or developed the crystal healing techniques, or built this institute." Sarah considered this. That laboratory accident might have been the most fortunate disaster in galactic history. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching a human transport ship dock alongside a luminary crystal carrier. The crews emerged and immediately began working together, humans and luminary moving in perfect coordination as they unloaded medical supplies destined for a distant colony. "What's next for us?" Kira asked. "We've built the Institute, established interspecies cooperation, and created medical techniques that are saving lives across the galaxy. What could possibly top this?" Sarah smiled mysteriously. "Actually, I've been discussing a new project with Crystal Song and some of the other researchers. We're thinking about exploring the possibility of consciousness transfer between species." Kira's ears perked up with immediate interest. Consciousness transfer? You mean allowing beings from different species to experience each other's thoughts and perspectives? "Exactly," Sarah replied. "Imagine if a human could temporarily experience the pattern recognition abilities of a vulpine, or if a vulpine could feel the harmonic resonances that Thackeray experience. True understanding between species might be possible. That would revolutionize everything," Kira breathed. "Not just medical cooperation, but complete cultural and philosophical exchange." "It would be dangerous research," Sarah warned. "Consciousness transfer could have serious side effects. We'd be dealing with the most fundamental aspects of what makes each species unique." Kira's tail began wagging with excitement despite the warnings. "When do we start?" Sarah laughed at her partner's enthusiasm. "I should have known you'd be ready for the next challenge. We start next week, with volunteers from 3 species." As they prepared to head back inside to begin planning their next revolutionary project, Sarah reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them here. A simple laboratory accident had led to first contact with an alien species, which had led to revolutionary medical breakthroughs, which had led to the most successful interspecies cooperation project in galactic history. And now they were about to embark on research that could fundamentally change how different species understood and related to each other. Sarah said as they walked toward the research laboratories, "I'm starting to think that the best discoveries come from the most unexpected places." Kira's amber eyes sparkled with anticipation for their next adventure. "Then, we should probably start looking for more laboratory accidents to investigate." They entered the Institute's research wing together, ready to push the boundaries of what was possible when different species worked together with mutual respect, shared goals, and the courage to explore the unknown. Behind them, through the crystal windows of the observation deck, ships from a dozen species continued their work building the foundations of a truly cooperative galactic civilization. The young vulpine who had once cried over spilled chemicals had become one of the key architects of a new era in interspecies relations. And this was still just the beginning.